Welcome to the DoubleACS Daily News for June 14, 2017. Historian and professor Gary L Hylander recently gave a talk about the presidency of Dwight Eisenhower at the Richards Memorial Library. Last week's talk was the final of 3 talks on the subject, and he gave us a brief summary.
For the last 3 sessions, almost 3 consecutive weeks, we've been talking in general about the 1950s, and more importantly, more specifically, about the Eisenhower administration. We like Ike, I like Ike. And to point out how Eisenhower, the first president of the Cold War, and Eisenhower very, very aware of the destructiveness of a battlefield and the need to keep the peace in a nuclear era. Presidential historians in the last 15 or 20 years have truly reevaluated Eisenhower. At the time, people in the 50s and in the 60s as well, and into the 70s, believed that Eisenhower was a caretaker president, that he did no heavy lifting. He was more concerned with his golf game than he was with running the country, and left the issue of diplomacy to John Foster Dulles and his brother, the head of the CIA, Allen Dulles. That all of that in the last 15 or 20 years has been completely disproven in looking at the Eisenhower record as more and more material becomes available to us. And that Eisenhower today, among presidential historians, that his reputation has soared to almost those who are, and I know this is subjective, those who are ranked as the near great presidents: Theodore Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson. When Harry Truman, for example, now he's ranked among the near great presidents, and Harry Truman never spent a single day in a college classroom. And you can do with that as you like. And to me, that speaks volumes, good volumes. Eisenhower kept the peace. He did not get involved in Vietnam. He did not get involved in Korea. He did not get involved in any military hardfighting in the Middle East to keep the peace. And he had hoped, that the crowning achievement of his presidency, would be able to meet with Nikita Khrushchev. And the two of them came to respect each other. Maybe not to like one another, but certainly respect each other as leaders, head of state. And Eisenhower hoped, and Khrushchev hoped, that in May of 1960, on the eve of the presidential election of 1960, and Eisenhower retiring to his farm at Gettysburg, that the first test ban treaty could be signed, to be able to limit the threat in a real way, by treaty, by agreement, the possibility of an accidental or a premeditated nuclear war. He didn't get it. He didn't get it because of the U-2 incident, which we talked about this evening. And if you haven't seen the program, stay tuned. I know it's coming. And Eisenhower was so unhappy he never got that peace treaty. He never got that test ban treaty. And in his last message to the American people, 3 days before he left office, January 17th of 1961, he went on national television, and he gave us a phrase that is so much part of our language today. And he warned the country about the merging influence and power and menace of the phrase he used, the military-industrial complex, which was an unholy alliance between the Defense Department, the Pentagon, and defense contractors, and that we need to balance out guns and butter. We cannot throw an inordinate amount of our money into the military. We need money for schools, for highways, for loans, for libraries, for science centers. We need a balance between guns and butter, and the military-industrial complex threatens to imbalance the balance I've tried to maintain. It was Eisenhower who, and he's a 5-star general, it was Eisenhower who cut the budget of the Army, that we can get, the phrase at the time was, more bang for the buck in ICBMs and in the first generation of nuclear submarines. Balance. We need the Davy Crockett hat, and we also need the Jupiter missile.
That's it for today's update. For DoubleACS News, I'm Austin Ricketts.